How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Opinion, and this is week 5 of college football picks. Once again, I'm bringing them to you every Thursday before the games get started coming up this weekend. And overall coming into week 5, I straight up on my picks, I'm 12-3. You guys want to tune in right here. The magic number seems to be 4-1. Only game I got wrong was Michigan last week, so Wisconsin proved me wrong. Kudos to Washington. Not Washington, Wisconsin. Kudos to Wisconsin beating Michigan. I thought Michigan was going to do it. Unfortunately, they couldn't. But overall, like I told you guys want to tune in right here. If you guys are part of Pick'em Pools, tune in right here. I'm not going to steer you wrong. I'm going to help you guys win money in your Pick'em Pools because I'm telling you, I'm picking the right games and I'm picking the right outcomes to these games. So I'm not going to steer you guys wrong. But I know y'all don't have a lot of time. And I definitely don't have a lot of time, so let's get right to it on this week's games. Coming to you guys Friday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Penn State, number 12 Penn State, traveling to Maryland, take on the Maryland Terrapins, who are coming off of a loss to Temple. Now, both of these teams, the last time we've seen both of these teams was a couple of weeks ago when Penn State took on Pitt. They defeated Pitt, and Maryland took on Temple, and surprisingly got beat 20-17 by Temple after putting up 60 and like 70 points in the first 2 weeks. And so the way that I see this game, the spread on this game is Penn State favored by 6.5. And so the way I see this game going, I have Penn State winning this game. I think Penn State's a little bit better defensively than Maryland. And yeah, Maryland, they looked good the first couple of weeks, but who were they playing? And then all of a sudden they got beat by Temple. So there's no way you're going to convince me a team that lost to Temple of all people, is now going to rise up and go put up 40 and 50 on Penn State. I don't see it. Penn State leans on their defense, and they're probably more than likely going to cover that spread. So I've got Penn State winning this game straight up versus Maryland. But I think Maryland will have a good season though. Next up, and that game's coming to you on FS1, that Penn State versus Maryland game on Friday, if I didn't mention that. Next up, number 18, Virginia versus number 10, Notre Dame. I got to tell you, I was pretty impressed with Notre Dame. Although they lost to Georgia, they were able to play toe-to-toe with Georgia, which I thought that they were going to get mollywopped. I think I might have said that in my last video that Notre Dame might have gotten mollywopped by Georgia. It didn't happen. They got beat 23-17. I did expect Georgia to win. However, I didn't think Notre Dame would keep up like the way that they did, and because of that, I've got Notre Dame winning. But the main reason that I've got Notre Dame winning is that I'm really not that impressed with Virginia so far. They're the only other team in the ACC outside of Clemson that seems to have a pulse this year. They are number 18, so that's better that they're ranked for the ACC purposes. However, I'm not that impressed with Bryce Perkins. I think he's got 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions already this season. So that's not a very good touchdown to interception ratio. And Notre Dame, like I said, they really impressed me versus Georgia last weekend. Albeit they lost, they really impressed me. So if they can hold up and play toe-to-toe with Georgia, they should have no problem. They should have no problem against Bryce Perkins, he's not even in the same ballpark as Jake Fromm. And I thought Notre Dame did a pretty decent job with Jake Fromm as well. So Notre Dame's favored to win this game by 12.5 points. You can catch that game at 2:30 on NBC, the Notre Dame network. And they're favored by 12.5 points, and I think Notre Dame will actually cover that spread. But ultimately, I think Notre Dame wins that game outright. So their playoff hopes are not quite dashed yet, even though they lost to even though they lost to Georgia. That's a pretty good loss. Next up on the docket, coming on at the same time, 2:30 Central Time on Saturday. Number 21 USC travels up to Seattle, Washington to take on the Washington Huskies, the number 17 Washington Huskies, and that's coming up 2:30 on Fox. And in this game, I think USC's quarterback now is Matt Fink. So USC is down to about their third string quarterback. He looked good versus Utah, I must admit. If I would have put that USC Utah game on the docket, I would have got it wrong last week. I will admit, but I didn't. So hey, we're not counting that against my record, right? But USC they've looked impressive. However, I think the road stops here with Matt Fink. I don't think Matt Fink's going to be able to outduel Jacob Eason, who I think Jacob Eason is actually the better of the quarterbacks that was at Georgia. However, Fromm somehow beat him out for the job. I think Jake Eason's better. I think that Washington just has a much better overall team, and they're playing a lot better defense than USC. Although USC has a good record thus far, their defense is a little bit shaky for me. And to be going on the road, you're not going to have a shaky defense and come out with you're not going to come out with the outcome you want the majority of the time with the shaky defense. So because of that, because Washington has the better defense, I think that'll be the difference in the ball game. Plus, they're going against a third-string quarterback. And like I said, Matt Fink played very, very well, but I think the road ends here for Matt Fink as far as the big high he's coming off of having beaten Utah last weekend. So I've got Washington in this game. They're favored by 10.5 points. They may not cover that spread, but I do have Washington winning this game. Now let's move on to Oklahoma State versus Kansas State, number 24 Kansas State. This game's coming to you, I believe, at 6:30 on ESPN Plus, which I think is awfully disrespectful to put this game on ESPN Plus. If you're a Kansas State fan or Oklahoma State fan, you've got to be pretty upset about that. But hey, the one positive to ESPN Plus, if you haven't subscribed to it, I believe you can get it 7 days for free. This will probably be the only game that either of these teams will play on this network. So go ahead and sign up and get that 7 days free, and don't give ESPN a dime for them putting this game on ESPN Plus. My advice to you guys: get the game, get the 7-day free trial, and then cancel it before they charge you. So that's some advice, some extra added advice to you, other than picking the same teams that I'm picking. But in this game, I've actually got Kansas State winning this game. I think the only way that Oklahoma State can win, and Oklahoma State's actually favored by 4. So if I got Kansas State winning and you're doing the point spread, then you may want to go with Kansas State on the point spread. But I've got Kansas State actually just winning the game outright. And I think the reason for that is I think Kansas State, both of their running backs are averaging over 6 yards per carry. Kansas State has the better defense. They're coming off of a bye week where they just had a really huge win over Mississippi State on the road. Now, they are going on the road again to Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, but I think Kansas State wins the game. I think the only way Oklahoma State wins the game is if Oklahoma State simply just outscores Kansas State. And I don't see that this year, because I think Kansas State's got a good enough defense, and their quarterback, albeit he only has 4 touchdowns, but one thing he doesn't have, he's got that many interceptions. He's not turning the ball over that much. And I think that's probably the only way Oklahoma State can win. There's 2 ways they can win. They're just going to have to outscore Kansas State, which they have a good enough offense to do it. They got Tylan Wallace, Chua Hubbard, Spencer Sanders. So they have the guys to do it. Or they're going to have to force Kansas State into a lot of turnovers. And Kansas State historically is not a team that's going to beat themselves. And so with that being said, I think Kansas State's defense is good enough to make the necessary stops against Oklahoma State to win the ball game. So like I said, on the point spread, if you've got Oklahoma State on the point spread, you may want to go the other way, because I've got Kansas State outright. And so that should tell you something right there. So unfortunately for the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys will still rally and have a pretty decent season. But unfortunately, in my opinion, they're going to start off 0-2 in conference play. And then the game of the week, College Game Day, I believe, is going up to Lincoln, Nebraska. I haven't been there in 10 years. As number 5 Ohio State Buckeyes come in to take on the unranked, but very impressive thus far, Nebraska Cornhuskers, coming off of their only loss to Colorado. So I believe Nebraska is coming into this game at 3-1 or 2-1. But their only loss being Colorado. But in this game, Ohio State, they're coming in with Justin Fields. They have a new coach this year, and Ohio State's looked very, very impressive. Very impressive. I believe they put up 70 points last week. Now, Nebraska will be the best team talent-wise that Ohio State has faced on the road. But I think Ohio State I think they're very, very impressive. They seem to be a team on a mission. There's no distractions this year. There's none of those Urban Meyer distractions. There's none of those player distractions. They know who they are, and they know what they need to do. And Ohio State's very, very impressive on offense, defense. Not sure about their special teams. Haven't really looked into that, but they can't be too bad on the special teams. So, albeit Nebraska's looked very, very impressive. This would be a huge win early in the Scott Frost tenure, but I don't think it's going to happen quite yet. So, even though it doesn't happen, I think Ohio State's just way too talented. Too much offense, too much defense for Nebraska to be able to stop. I think in time, This will just be another building block for Nebraska to realize where they're at and where they need to go. And so, although Scott Frost doesn't get it done this time, I think in the future they will get it done. But I think the game it'll be a decent game early because the fans will be riled up. It'll be a decent game early, but I think as we get later into the game, I think Ohio State's talent will really start to take over. And I've got Ohio State winning by whatever the spread is on this game. I've got Ohio State winning by that. So those are all the games this week. As I always like to say, everybody has an opinion. What's yours? I want to hear from you. Leave your comments below. Like and subscribe. And like I said, follow because I'm not going to be wrong too many times. I'm out of here.